So back when I worked at Lakeshore Pentecostal Camp, I had this worker, this guy who used to work for me. His name was Chad. You may know him. And Chad was, he's from the Valley, and the Valley Boys I came to know and realize as I gave leadership to the maintenance department, the Valley Boys were quite different in more ways than one. And Chad was a great worker, but also a daredevil and a risk taker, and a little bit on the wild side in terms of doing daring things. And so I remember I had this Sea-Doo. It was I believe it was a 110 horsepower Sea-Doo, and it would do 120 kilometers an hour, no problem on the water. And I remember having Chad on the Sea-Doo once, and him talking about extreme jumping and what this whole idea of extreme jumping. And I had never really heard of the term before, but Chad seemed to uh, know what it was all about from his days at Ottawa Valley Pentecostal Camp, and he talked about jumping off boats at extreme speeds. And so Chad had the idea one night as we rode on the Sea-Doo after work that he'd like to jump off the back of my Sea-Doo. And I didn't think a whole lot of it. I thought, what damage could be done. I was young at the time as well, and not thinking of the repercussions or consequences to something so stupid. Daring. And so Chad was on the back of my Sea-Doo, and he said, I want to jump off at around 60 miles per hour. So 120 kilometers per hour. And I thought, okay, there's probably a few screws loose in your head, but we already knew that about Chad anyway, so that was nothing new. So I just figured, okay, if this guy wants to jump off my Sea-Doo at that speed, then who am I to stop him? Go for it, man. And so, not realizing that there were other people watching and bosses and people that gave leadership to us, I proceeded to allow Chad to do this. Much to my stupidity. Anyways, I got the Sea-Doo. I remember Chad sitting on, and he was sitting on. I can't even remember the way he was sitting on. If he was facing or facing, I think he was facing backwards. And so we were in kind of by the shore because you don't want to do stunts without people being able to see. There's just no fun in that. So everyone watching on shore, it was kind of a big show, and we had told a few people about it. Chad was going to do this, and so anyways. The time arrived. We were up to speed. We were up around 58, 59 miles per hour, and just had her right to the rim, and Chad just all of a sudden out of nowhere he just takes off. He flies off and jumps into the water. And I looked back, and I'll never forget the picture, the image I still have of Chad skipping. You know when you skip a rock across the top of the water, it's like that water is nothing to that rock. And that's the way I saw. I pictured Chad's body as it just skipped across the water like he was like lighter than air, and it just skipped across like nothing, and then bam, a big huge thud at the end, and he just crashed. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've just killed one of my workers. He's going to bob up, and he's going to be floating on the top of the water like a complete vegetable, and he's going to be paralyzed, and his neck is broken. And I'm thinking worst case scenario. I'm thinking there's no way he's coming out of that alive without any repercussions. And sure enough, a few minutes later, I had stopped the Sea-Doo, and I'm waiting. We're waiting for Chad to appear above the water again, and Chad comes up, head is bobbing, big smile across his face, I'll never forget, gives the two thumbs up. And that was my experience, how I remember it, when Chad decided to do some extreme jumping off of my Sea-Doo. That's your man, Chad. Wild at heart.